Welcome in, everybody, to the inaugural episode of the Best Available Podcast. Joey Bray and my good friend Ryan Parish here from Behind the Steel Curtain. This is going to be a podcast where we give you everything NFL draft. We're going to be very lucky enough to travel to Mobile, Alabama, to the Senior Bowl and get a chance to cover the NFL draft. And we're going to try to give you guys our perspective on this class as a whole and hopefully keep this podcast going throughout the year, keep you covered, everything you need NFL draft related. Ryan, introduce yourself to the people.
Hey, yeah. So I'm Ryan Parish. I am the deputy editor, I think is the correct title. I forget. I'm the number 2 at Behind the Steel Curtain in terms of our editorial duties. So straight up front, we're just going to tell you all we are definitely coming from a Steelers background. However, this draft is going to be a little more broad and inclusive. We'll obviously make our time for our Steelers probably every pod, but we'll be talking to other teams just because I think you'll come to find out, both me and Joey, we really love the process that is the NFL draft, and we like diving into all the prospects. And our team isn't going to draft every possible position that could be drafted, but that doesn't mean we don't have an interest and knowledge and a desire to dive into those topics. So I'm looking forward to this. I mean, it's a couple of weeks away from going down to Mobile. That's kind of been something I've been dreaming about for several years. So excited that I get to take this journey with you, Joey.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be able to go down to Mobile with you and cover some of these prospects. We still don't have the full confirmed list of guys that are going to be in Mobile. It seems like that list is growing. I know we were talking about before we started to record, like Garrett Nussmeier, KC Conception, some guys from bigger name schools, some guys that a lot of more general college football fans know are starting to say, yeah, I'm going to go to the Senior Bowl. I'm going to showcase my skills. So definitely excited for that. And if you're here for Steelers coverage, you're going to get some of that. Trust me, we will save time every podcast to talk about more of a Steelers slanted thing because we do get paid to cover the Steelers at the end of the day. But this is going to be more of general thoughts on this class and everything like that. Like Ryan said, the process of the NFL draft is something we really enjoy. So we'll get into the process. Why don't we? It's very, very early in the draft process. January, there's not really much we can do as far as diving deep into these prospects, into these day 2 and 3 guys that maybe not everybody knows. So what do we think about this class as a whole, Ryan? Just when you think about the 2026 NFL draft class, which, by the way, still isn't finalized, the NCAA does give some guys some grace who are still in the college football playoff, who, went to the second round of the college football playoff, time to declare for this draft. So we don't have the full list, still some top prospects to decide whether or not they're coming back. But early thoughts on this class as a whole.
Well, for starters, I think this is kind of a reheat of last year's class in that this is a draft class where I think there are certain positions that are deeper than others, and those positions are traditionally not the ones that are considered the high value positions. I think we get a little overboard with that sometimes, but with something that's grown in such popularity and so much analysis in the last, even in my lifetime, in the last 20 years, we've gone and seen running backs are devalued. Not that this is a good running back class. It isn't. But, those get elevated. Linebackers used to be something that we litter in the first round. You hardly see linebackers get drafted in the first round anymore. And that's one of the strong ones this year. I think it's going to be another really good D-line year. I don't think it's going to be a necessarily superstar edge class. I think it's going to be one of those where it's the top is kind of pick your flavor. There's more than one way to skin a cat, if you will. There's more than one type of edge rusher. And so who you think the top guy is really going to depend on your system and what you're looking for. But I do think there's a lot of depth and a lot of future NFL starters, if you will. Not necessarily future Pro Bowlers or future all pros, although I'm sure there will be some that come out of this class. There almost always is at least a handful out of every class. But I do think this is going to be one where, when you do the name game in 20 years about, hey, remember this random guy? Or those ones name a random Steeler, and someone's really loves Brett Kiesel or Aaron Smith or your Nate Washingtons, those types of players. Valuable players in their own right, but maybe not superstars. I think that's what this class is kind of overall. You're going to see a lot of depth, but not a lot of superstars.
This class, for me, it's really interesting because I think everybody's kind of just looking towards the 2027 class and looking at how stacked of a lineup that is going to be. I mean, Jeremiah Smith, Arch Manning, just to name a few. just the top two guys in that class that you can already probably say, yeah, they're probably going to go 1 and 2. I think everybody's looking towards that and saying, oh, the 26 class, it just sucks. It's not good. I don't think there's nearly the star power at the top. I think it's hard to debate that because Jeremiah Smith's one of the better wide receiver prospects we may ever see declared for the draft. I don't think that's crazy to say given what he's done in his first 2 seasons at Ohio State. But what this class has is a lot of really quality players, like you said, a lot of potential, a handful of all pros down the line. But the thing I like about this class is that it's going to be very subjective to what fits your needs, what you like in prospects, what you like as a player. It's going to be team dependent. I think this draft, obviously, Fernando Mendoza is probably going to go 1-1 to the Vegas Raiders, but that is really the only surefire pick that we know of. I feel like in the last couple of draft class, if they hold on to it. And,
I gotta imagine they do, but yeah. I think there is an argument to be made that if you're a team as bad as they are, maybe you trade back and try to build some of that roster. I'd probably take the quarterback, but we've seen crazier things happen. Maybe he's not their type of quarterback.
Maybe he isn't. Maybe whoever they hire, they're like, yeah, I don't like that Mendoza guy. Let's take the 2 first-round picks the Jets are offering us. Just hypothetical. But again, what I mean is like the wide receiver group is like a perfect example for me. I think there are a couple of guys in Jordyn Tyson, in Makhai Lemon, and in Carnell Tate, where I think they're a tier for me. They're like 1, 2, and 3. I don't have them in any particular order as of right now. But what I think you'll see is a lot of people have them like Ryan says he has an order for them. I'd love to hear it right now. But I do think
we'll get into that, I'm sure.
Okay. But I think you're going to see a lot of people early on in the process maybe say, oh, I like Carnell Tate better. Oh, I like Makhai Lemon better. But it's just going to come down to what the team wants, what the team needs. And I think you're going to see a lot of picks in this class where people their knee-jerk reaction is going to be like, oh, that's a reach. I like Jordyn Tyson better than I like Carnell Tate or something like that. But it's just going to be very team dependent. That's my early take on this class, is that it's a lot of guys in a lot of different positions. Edge rusher's another one. Ruben Bain's really interesting to me. But arm size, dude. I don't know if you're a big arm size guy. That was a big thing with Will Campbell. With Will Campbell last year, it was a big thing.
He's pretty how good. He got bullied tonight. I feel like, spoiler, we're recording this, or maybe not a spoiler, but disclaimer, we're recording this on Sunday night of Wild Card Weekend. We just watched everything but the Steelers game, which comes tomorrow night. But regardless of whenever this episode gets released, he seems to have some issues when he has to really extend that bend, and I think it matters. I don't think it's everything, but I do think it goes from, oh yes, this is a slam dunk top 5 guy, to like, okay, maybe he falls a little bit. Like, I think he's still a first round talent. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's that kind of class where it's going to be like, all right, well, do you like him, or do you like a guy who's more like a 3-4 backer and like your David Bailey from Texas Tech? Or do you prefer, somebody else along the defensive line? Maybe you're saying, maybe this is the year we go D tackle and we take like a Peter Woods instead. There's all kinds of options up here. It really is a very big, just a, what is your team and what are you looking for and what do you want? Because that sounds kind of obvious, but in a draft like this, I think what that really means is that there aren't going to be consensus like, yeah, this guy's going top 5, this guy's going top 10. It's kind of like last year. We'll see some guys where we'll see them get mocked top 10 all draft process, and maybe they go in the teens instead. It's really going to depend on what these execs want.
Maybe we'll see, some guys get mocked to go in the first round, to the Steelers slot, and maybe they'll go in the 5th round to the Browns.
Yeah, wide receiver is like the perfect example, the perfect position to talk this about, because I've seen basically all 3 of those wide receivers you've mentioned dropped the Steelers. I've seen mocks where all 3 of them, and again, obviously we're very early in the process, and I'm sure we'll take another turn on this, but I've also seen all 3 mocked off the board before we get to the Steelers. So, it's really gonna be an interesting next couple of months.
With wide receivers, it's also really interesting to me because I feel like the last couple of draft classes, there's been a guy that everybody knows he's good. He's like a top 3 wide receiver in the class, but he just drops to like the late teens, maybe even early 20s. I'm thinking Jackson Smith and Jigba. I'm thinking Emeka Egbuka. A couple of Emeka Egbuka had an awesome start to his rookie year. Didn't do anything the last 2 months of the season.
Yeah, you can thank Shane Waldron for that.
Yeah, I thank you, Shane Waldron. Thank you, Baker Mayfield.
Bubble
Yeah.
screens to the best receiver in the league, possibly. What a call.
But yeah, I think again, this class overall, it may not have the star power up front that it has, but it has a lot of really good players, and it's going to be an interesting process to see where these guys sit, where these guys fall. And I think we talk about star power. The guy that like holds top of the line star power potential in this draft, if he declared, he would probably be the consensus 102 to the New York Jets. Dante Moore just had an embarrassing loss. Ryan, I know you're a Ducks fan, but an embarrassing loss to Indiana, had a couple of not great turnover. It wasn't a good game from Dante Moore, whether it was his fault or just Indiana being completely dominant. You can talk about that if you want. But Dante Moore, what do you do if you're him? Do you declare? I hope he doesn't declare before we release this. I don't think he
I
will.
I mean, I've gone this whole season. Like I did a whole summer series on these quarterbacks, and so for the most part, uh, this whole season's been pretty disappointing. This time last year, people were saying, "Oh, just wait till 2026. The quarterback class will be really good." But again, it's like this assumption that all of the underclassmen are going to have amazing seasons. All of the previous juniors that are going to become seniors are going to only get better. And instead, we saw the opposite happen in reality, and that happens sometimes. For Dante Moore, this whole season, as a Duck fan, I'm not saying this because I'm biased in that way, because obviously if he's NFL ready, go to the NFL. That's always my take. But this is a young man who started 5 games in UCLA. Disaster.
Chip
So
Kelly.
didn't really know what we were getting coming into the year. I mean, like obviously you read the reports and everybody there was really positive about him, but there were still people even before the year being like, well, is it going to be him or is it going to be the guy who ended up not starting? There was a little bit of a battle, and you just don't know what you don't know until you see a guy play. And he, I think, for the most part, played a really solid season. And I think he reminds me a lot of a quarterback like CJ Stroud in both stylistic play and sort of demeanor, in that he doesn't really get up too much. He doesn't really get down too much. So he's pretty even keel. I don't think he necessarily had a meltdown in that game, because I think, that pick six was bad to start the game. But then he had a really impressive drive following that. But then the wheels sort of fell off with the running back running into him on the RPO, some other things that just didn't. And like, if we're being honest, the tackles of Oregon were just completely outclassed most of that game. And I just think that if I was him, I would go back. So many of the Ducks, like today, a lot of the D-line. So like Amari Washington was a player that I was really excited for this D-line class. He's going back. Just like Bear Alexander a couple weeks ago, he's going back. So I think it's one of those where it's like, if all the guys are going back and you have, let's see, with that, it's like he had like 5 starts before. He got like 13, 14 starts off the top of my head this season. So he's only got like 17 to 19 college starts this year, or in his career. I would go back. Honestly, I would. We just have this like murky record of these guys. Like, I mean, in this class, kind of forced to come out. Ty Simpson. Like, if you're an NFL team, he had some bright spots, especially in October. But, how confident are you, having only seen about like 14 to 15 starts total of Ty Simpson? Like how confident are you invested in that? And so while I think he would still get drafted high, regardless of the outcome, personally, I'm sitting there, if I'm him, and I'm saying, I think it's going to be a tough class next year. I'm maybe not guaranteed to come out as high, but you can't really I don't know a single athlete who's going to sit there and go, but I'm going to suck next year. I'm not going to bet on myself. Like part of being the quarterback is needing to be confident. And so like, if you're confident in yourself, why would you not go back for another year? You already like pretty much ran the Big Ten except for Indiana this year in the 101 Mendoza. So come back a year later, get a little more seasoning, and see what happens. And maybe you don't end up on the Jets, which wouldn't be a bad thing either.
I was going to say that. I'm glad you brought that up. First of all, I respect the guys who are willing to go back for another year. An interesting fact, stat, whatever you want to call it, on Dante Moore, if he went into the draft today, and he would presumptively get picked top 5, probably second overall to the New York Jets, if he declared, he would become only the 3rd quarterback in the modern era to be selected top 5 after having less than 20 collegiate starts. Do you know who the other 2 are? Can you take a guess who the other 2 are off the top of your head?
Say that stat to me one more time.
Less than 20 career college starts, pick top 5. since 2000.
Zach Wilson, right?
I think Zach Wilson, no.
No, he was? Okay, I'm trying to think. It was one of those guys.
One of them was a
Zach Wilson
Steeler
has.
once upon a time.
One was once a Steeler once upon a time? It can't be
Yeah.
Kenny Pickett because he started a long time, I thought.
He started probably 50 games in college.
Yeah, because like that was his whole thing. He's got all the experience. Okay.
He grew up in the same building as the Steelers.
Quarterback that was a Steeler? Oh man, Dwayne Haskins.
No,
Mitch
Trubisky.
Oh, fuck. Mitch Trubisky. Yeah, okay, fair. Mitch Trubisky. Yeah, that's fair. You know he went before Mahomes and he who shall not be named in Cleveland.
It's it's okay. The Bears have righted their wrongs by getting Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson. They've made up for that. Maybe not.
So it's still one more guy though, yeah.
One more guy. He was what class was that? 21. Or no, that was 22. 22. My bad.
Okay, if you give me 22. Oh man, now I'm on the spot.
Who went top 5 in 22? Bryce Young was the one pick.
Bryce Young. Yeah. Okay.
No, it was
not Bryce Young. So not Bryce Young. So
not
then
Bryce Young. He was the first pick in that draft.
Well, it was Bryce Young then, and then who was? Oh, man, 2022. Okay. Let me think. Processing. What's annoying is I definitely play this little like card game too, where you always get the year and what year these guys came out. So like I should have this off the top of my head. I just remember 22 not being a great year. Was it Stroud?
It was not Stroud. It was the guy who went directly after him, Anthony Richardson.
Oh, okay. For some reason, in my head, he was 23. Maybe it's because he just like we didn't see him at all his rookie year.
Yeah. So again, Dante Moore would enter rare air with these guys who haven't played a lot in college, and the NFL clearly thinks very highly of them, and teams are willing to spend a top 5 pick on you. But I think there is an element of going back to play in school, get some more football under your belt, especially, and you're lying to yourself if you're listening to this and you're like, well, it doesn't matter. He should go. The Jets should pick him. He shouldn't be worried about playing for the Jets. Absolutely, he should be worried about playing for the Jets. That plays a huge factor into it. I cannot believe Aaron Glenn has a job. I know this is a draft podcast and this is not draft related. I can't believe Aaron Glenn has a job right now. It is mind blowing.
I can because I will say this one thing. I will say this one thing is that Dan Campbell's first year was an absolute disaster too. And when you're going to the Jets, I do honestly think that you've got to take whatever happens in year one and throw it out the window because that's a perpetually dysfunctional organization with a perpetual talent deficiency. And then the GM on top of it traded away like basically every talented player they had that wasn't named Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. So, like
very fair.
The O-line. The O-line's getting there. I will say that if we're going to make we're trying to reach our audience
glass
broader.
Half full. Glass half full.
The O-line is a reason for hope. I will say that. But man,
the thing that I won't be able to get past, they didn't have an interception at all this season. Not one singular interception. Ryan, the league passes more than they ever have, ever in the league's history. And they had no interceptions they were the first team to do it since 1933. That it is very likely that will never happen again in either of our lifetimes.
Probably, I will say.
And he is a defensive-minded head coach. I know they traded away Sauce Gardner, but yeah, go ahead.
But they're trending back. I will say this year they traded way back to the running game. Running game was back like it's never been back since like before Peyton Manning. And on top of it, I will say the Jets also, I bet if you go and look at it, lead the league in dropped interceptions. Because, like, as a coach, you can get them in the right spot, but you can't catch it for them. So we'll go with that. But, I give Aaron Glenn a little bit of grace. We all saw how they handled their quarterback situation this year. I officially sold all of my last stock in Justin Fields ever being anything more than a competent backup. But, Jets gonna
Justin
Jets.
Fields. Jets gonna Jets. So right now, I think we've come to a consensus. Dante Moore should probably go back to school. Probably go back to school. Do I blame him if he comes out No,
No.
because he's going to go second overall, and he's going to have he's going to get to throw to Garrett Wilson.
And to the
So I
point of
guess
the
that's cool.
quarterbacks you listed, Mitch Trubisky and
Anthony Richardson.
Anthony Richardson, I will say, as a prospect, just on what they were coming out as and what he's coming out as, he's light years ahead. Like, let's not get it twisted. Like, they went high because I do think that there's still plenty of teams, and obviously we don't have all the answers, but I think there's still plenty of teams that are just kind of spraying and praying when it comes to the draft. And a lot of the process is not always. There's just certain teams, especially like the Jets, where you've got the owner's son that's questioning moves they've made because of players' Madden ratings.
Yep.
So his name's
Yep.
Brick, but uh, I just I have to believe he's a better prospect than those guys are. But at the same time, I'm
I have
like,
a hard time disagreeing.
why would you, if you truly believe in yourself and you believe that you are not just a flash in the pan? To me, coming out is you saying, this is the highest I can possibly be drafted. I'd be crazy not to take it. Whereas if you go back to school, I think that's a sign of confidence in that I'm going to get the process done a little bit better. I'm going to take more reps. I'm going to be as ready as possible, because it's kind of what's that old test where it's like you put a donut in front of a kid and you say, hey, you can have this donut now, or you can wait 10 minutes and you can get a dozen donuts. And the kids that always take it, this old stale one, end up kicking themselves once the better outcome just involved a little patience. So, I just feel like, especially at the most important and most scrutinized position in the world, if he's truly serious about being an NFL player and truly serious about being an NFL quarterback who's going to like last more than first contract, you gotta do everything you can to maximize. And I gotta imagine that last game particularly is going to
Yeah.
leave him with a pretty bad taste in his mouth. I think it exposed a lot of the flaws in his game, in that he's still like, he reads a field well. He's got a really pretty ball. He's still maybe sometimes just a tick late. And I think if he can play another year, speed his process up a little bit, it'll do more wonders for him down the line.
I think very highly of Dante Moore. I want to have that on record, because I thought there was a time, once upon a time, maybe like a month and a half ago, before Mendoza, beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, and we really got a taste of like, holy shit, this Indiana team is really, really good, and they've just been beating the shit out of everybody all season long. Before we really knew what Indiana was about, I thought there was a legitimate possibility that by the time it was all said and done, Dante Moore could have been QB1 in this class. I really, really do, because of his tools, because of everything that you said. But there is an element of he needs to go back and he needs to play more football. But I do want it on the record, I think very highly of Dante Moore. And I do think 2027, it's a toss-up what quarterback he'll be, because, again, we went through this whole thing early in the season where everybody touted this class as, it's going to be a great class for quarterbacks. We're going to have Lenora Sellers and John Mateer come out, and they're all going to go top 5, and it's going to be wonderful. And, they all kind of had seasons, and they're going to go back for another year. So we'll see with this quarterback class. But the one guy we know about is Fernando Mendoza. A point I want to bring up about Mendoza, I think people are scouting him too much purely on his personality. I tweeted about this. I don't know if you saw it. I think the whole thing with Mendoza is going to be so interesting over the next couple of months, because people are only going to look at his mentals, his personality, his leadership, how goofy he is in these interviews. And they're going to be like, yeah, I don't know about this guy. Guys, Fernando Mendoza is a damn good football player. This guy can spin it, simply put. But what do you? It sounds like you agree with this. You're having these same thoughts about you seeing people tweet about Mendoza, especially early on.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of alluded to it earlier. I did a whole quarterback series this last summer because I was looking forward to this class just like everybody else. That did have obviously the caveat that, like, hey, as always, the football has to be played,
Yep.
and it will tell us what's going to rise to the top. I will say Dante Moore got the least votes in that process. I blind presented all 3 quarterbacks, and I did it up. I did like 15 quarterbacks. I would do 3 at a time for each article. I would blind present them as best I can. I feel like if you're like really plugged in, you could figure out who I was talking about. And I also was pretty cheeky with a lot of the like nicknames I gave them to hide their identity. But like for him, I called him, what did I call him? I named him after, what's that movie? There's a movie, I think it's like The Deadliners or something like that. It's this like 80s or maybe it was 90s horror movie where they like die so that they could access the afterlife and then bring themselves back to life, and then stuff happens. Flatliners. I
Yes.
called him the flatliner because his UCLA career was so catastrophic. He had Chip Kelly on his way out, who clearly didn't give a damn. Uh, that whole program has been a mess now for the better part of the last 5 years, and so like he didn't have a lot of positives I could present because all I could really be like is like he had 5 games, y'all. And they weren't great games. We think he's good. He's a 5-star prospect, but star prospects are like that whole system of rating college recruits is its own bag. And he got the least amount of votes. I tried to really actually sell Mendoza pretty hard in the one he was in, and he didn't advance to the final round because again, I think people just like, they don't really know. He's not like a statistical wonder. I feel like the box score doesn't necessarily really paint the perfect picture with him because in Cal, again, it was a team where it was like the offensive system. It was like, no, you need to be paying attention to like the fact that he's not throwing a ton of interceptions, the fact that he's not getting sacked despite everything around him, the throws that he's able to make. I was super hyped for him. I was like, he came into the season as my like QB4 with a chance to be the QB 101. But obviously I was giving deference to the Nussmeyers and Klubniks and Sellers of the world, who everyone was sure were going to be the thing this year and just didn't end up being that. And it's like, by the time we got to October, I was like, no, this is Mendoza or bust. Cause like Matier got hurt. He had started hot, but then he got hurt. And when he came back, it was like all his worst habits showed back up. And it was just like so very clear that like Klubnik wasn't going to get it together. Nussmeier, chronically injured, seems like he's never healthy, seems like he doesn't have a lot of juice. So then when he gets injured, it gets even worse. Like, oh man, I don't know who was more disappointing, Clemson or LSU this year, if we're being honest. Those were two
Yeah.
programs that should have been amazing and just weren't. Good prospects coming out of both still. So, you can't hold a team record against these prospects on an individual level. But man, Mendoza, it's funny because I think people, like you say, have this like personality image that they've had ingrained for so long about what a quarterback is and what they look like and what they sound like. And I just think it's like so due for an update because that image, your John Elways, your like, your Joe Namaths, those types were existing in a world where you could complete like 54% of your passes and you were the shit. And
Yep.
like, they were, committing assault on the field essentially like to wide receivers going over the middle. Like, it was a different game entirely. So I just feel like the people that are like, and that's what's so funny is like, listen to Tom Brady ever talk. Do you think Tom Brady's like, everyone thinks he's cool because he won? When I listen to the man talk, I'm not like, this is a, highly charismatic individual. It's like, no, this guy's a nerd. And I think that's
Yeah.
what it takes anymore to be a successful high level quarterback is like, you need to be in love with the game. You need to be so obsessed with the mental aspects of things. And to me, that's exactly like he gets this comparison a lot because of the personality, but he's got like the Kirk Cousin personality, like to a
Yes.
T. And I think that's why people are like having the ick factor with him is because he reminds everybody of like icy Kirk, but like
Kirk
just watch the man
Cousins.
play. Just
Kirk
watch the man
Cousins was a
play.
damn good quarterback. I
Kirk
don't know
Cousins is
why.
pretty good for a fifth
He's
round
pretty
quarterback. Or was he
highest
fourth? I
total
forget.
career earnings in the NFL. I mean, he made a lot of money, if nothing else, and he was a damn good quarterback for quite a
I
long
know I'm
time.
exposing my age here, but like he came in the same class as Robert Griffin. And if you had told folks that RG3 was going to have a worse career than the backup they drafted on day 3, people would have laughed you out of the room. But
Oh yeah.
it's what happened. And like, he's not, and I think Mendoza, that's the thing is like they do the Kirk Cousins because they see him being kind of game managery. They see him kind of like with his personality. And I think that really discredits how athletic Mendoza is. He's like sneakily more athletic than I think people give him credit for because he tries to win with his arm more than he tries to win with his legs, but he can scoot. Like he's not going to be like, he's not going to come out and run like a 4.4 or 4.5 or anything, but I would be shocked if he's like not lower than a 4.8. I imagine he's like 4.6, 4.7, somewhere in there. So he's got some speed if he needs it. I think he did it once in the Oregon game. So like, I don't know. And he just throws such a good, he knows how to layer the ball. He accesses all parts of the field. One thing I will be curious to see is if he runs as much RPO in the pros, if they will adapt it to do that as much. I don't think that he necessarily needs to. He's just so good at it that it would make sense to.
Well, he runs the
But
ball is
if there's
so
any
interesting.
questions I have about him, it's I want to see him when things get murky more, because I think that's the one big question mark we have, is he had such a good system around him where he was able to make quick decisions this year that there weren't a lot of times where he had to like sit back and make something happen. Not that he didn't at all, but that's the one area where I do have a few questions I still want answered, but I think he's got everything else.
He'll see plenty of murky waters and things to work through in Las Vegas.
Oh my God. I really hope if they do draft him that they bring in some vet and they like I'm normally not the one who's like, sit him for a year, let him, because like I normally am like, no, experience is the best. But like if the O line is what it was this year, which
Good
I gotta
Lord.
imagine it won't be because they won't have Pete Carroll's son who has no real experience coaching. But if it's the same crop of talent, and that's how you break a quarterback.
Yeah.
So I hope that if he does end up going there, that they at the least upgrade their line, and if not that, maybe consider making some vet the sacrificial for the first 2-3 months and put him in at the end.
Yeah. So the other big NFL draft news we got this week was Ty Simpson officially declaring it's been reported that he turned down $6.5 million in NIL money to declare for the NFL draft. Why would he do that? Why, Brian Windhorst? Why would he do that?
Who was
Do you want
offering him the 6.5 million? Because I bet you it was.
apparently it had to have been Alabama, no? You think it was in Alabama?
I don't see how it is, because I think they have a quarterback they want to get in there. That's why I
That's
think he
true.
declared. I think like here's the other thing with that 6.5 mil. Maybe he was getting offered that from a smaller program, or maybe not smaller. 6.5 is not cheap. He's not going to like a small program for 6.5 million. But you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there could be like a bottom feeder Big Ten school that would be like, hey, yeah, we got that in the budget. Let's get him in there. But I just feel like if it was Alabama with full support of him, I get why he would go back. But I feel like they want to move on. And so I feel like that's why he had to declare, is because he knows that if he goes back to Alabama, he's not going to be the starter next year.
I don't know if it was so much that Alabama said, hey, we have a guy, we really want to get him in. I think it was more of Ty Simpson went to his agents and they talked to NFL scouts and he got some first round feedback. I really think that's what happened here, is because Dante Moore's been the biggest question mark. We just talked about that throughout this entire process. Ty Simpson is going to be the de facto QB2 in this class. At least that's the way it's looking right now. I think Ty Simpson got some really good feedback. There's always one guy in every class that like people don't like for a number of reasons. I'm thinking Bo Nix, people were lower on him than he got drafted. Tyler Shuck was a pick that people hated because he was 26 years old. But
He was
again,
my QB2 last year, just saying.
Tyler Shuck was your QB2. Really?
It wasn't a strong class in my opinion. So he was
It wasn't. It really
so
wasn't.
he was like, I'm not saying that he would be QB2 in every year. I'm just saying specifically last year I had him certainly higher than Shador and certainly higher than Dart.
Well, yeah.
I'm not a huge Dart guy. I don't think Dart did.
I'm not sold on Dart. Not
I
sold
think
on Dart
Dart's athletic
whatsoever.
enough that he can make some hay. Like, how's what he did much different than Justin Fields, if I'm being honest? Like,
Yeah.
everything that got you excited about him was his legs or deep throws. And like Justin Fields could run around and he had deep throws. Not saying they're the exact same player, they're not. But I've never been a huge Dart guy, so we'll just say that. As for Ty Simpson, I mean, if he goes in the first, power to whoever
More
does
power
it.
to him. Could be our Steelers. So
because
you
I'm not
better
gonna
choose
like.
your
I don't
words.
want to. I don't think so, man. He doesn't seem. But we could always be surprised. Here's my thing with him. I think this process is going to be very critical for him. Because I can see a world where he does go in the first round. I don't think that's like out of the question. But I am currently leaning towards he's a true round 2 talent And if he gets elevated into the first round, that's because teams are so desperate and there just aren't a lot
Yes.
of options around. Like the year we took Kenny Pickett, like I was so mad. And I think we've talked about this before, but I I did not want them to take him. I did not think he was a first round talent. I wanted them to take George Pickens, funnily enough, and they ended up doing that in the second round. But
Go.
but you know, and that worked out great too. So like take that for what you will. But talented player. Talented player.
Yeah.
Or the head case talented player.
We like the talent. We don't care so much about the head case on this
You can't
podcast.
really account for
We like
because,
the talent.
at the end of the day, we don't know these guys personally.
Yeah.
We're going to get to see some over of them up close this year when we go to the Senior Bowl. So that'll be cool. That'll be more inside than we've ever been. But, you know, there's only so much that we can know about the personality and makeup of these guys who we see on TV for a couple hours at a time and like not, being themselves per se. Like we don't know what's in a guy's heart. We don't know what's in their head, but we see the talent. And Ty Simpson, I'm gonna say like he's got some great pre-snap processing. That's like his biggest draw is he's got some really good pre-snap processing. The problem is I don't think he handles pressure crazy well when he gets a rusher in his face. I don't think he's got an unstartable arm by any means. You see guys with like, mediocre NFL arms that are successful. I don't think he's like he's not a Tua Tagovailoa. You know what I mean? He's not that level of like no arm strength, but he's also not like anybody who's gonna win solely on his arm just creating. So I just think you mix that in with the only really getting to see him play for 1 year, and that's just a lot of risk. And I feel like we've rounded a corner now, and it only takes one team, so I could be wrong, but where teams are starting to draft a little smarter. And I think they're starting to take things into account, such as inexperience, because we've got a lot of examples in recent years, maybe not as few starts as Dante Moore, but like guys who haven't started that super long, not really working out. I mean, look at the Trey Lances of the world. Look at Mac
God,
Jones.
I thought Trey Lance was going to be special. Matt, continue. Sorry.
I mean, I liked him too.
Got emotional thinking about Trey Lance.
But, I think we all learned as a draft community a lot of lessons from that draft class and quarterbacks in particular. And so with Ty Simpson, it's like, man, if you tell me a team wants to spend a second round pick on him, totally go for it. If you're telling me you want to spend like a top 10 pick, I think that's crazy. If you're telling me you want to spend like a bottom 10 pick in the first round, I'm still a little hesitant, but I get it because if he is awesome, you get that fifth year. But anything outside of that round, like I think he's totally in the Jackson Dart, Lamar Jackson, like we trade in at the back at the end of the first. I could see that happening.
Yeah.
But I think this process, especially if he goes to senior day, I haven't seen if he's signed up yet or not. I think he has.
I haven't seen him. Is he on Senior Bowl?
I don't know.
have not seen him.
We gotta pull up the invites. Those are getting updated constantly. I'm not sure if he has or hasn't. Now. There's also Shrine Bowl to consider because now that Nagy has no longer tied with the Senior Bowl, he did a lot of work, I know, to really make it the sort of all-star game for draft prospects. But I think East-West Shrine has been really trying to step into that sphere. So I know a lot of players are also now opting to go there instead. So I'm not sure which one he has or if he's declared for either. But if he does go to one of those, I think that would be pretty telling because I think he's one of those guys where if he goes, he's going to have to do the whole week of practices. He doesn't get to do which obviously it backfired, but he doesn't get to do the Shador of like, I'm not going to throw. I'm just going to hang out and do interviews. Like, he's not that level of prospect. Clearly Shador wasn't either, but, so if he does go, I'm excited to see him throw in person because I think while those aren't perfect settings and there's really only so much you can't expect like to know for sure, I do think being thrown into a situation where you're with a bunch of other players who you're not familiar with, and if you're able to perform well, I think that does count for something.
Yeah. So right now, the Senior Bowl has these quarterbacks as accepted invites.
Okay.
Arkansas's Talon Green, Baylor's Sawyer Robertson,
That's going to be the sneaky one. I'm curious to see how high he goes because
I
he's the
know.
one where I kind of soured on him as the season went along. I feel like he's a little too robotic, but I think there's a couple of coaches and a couple of offensive schemes where that's what they want.
I got to see Sawyer Robertson play for Baylor when he played WVU last season. I was a part of their radio station there, and I got to cover that game. Sawyer Robertson was phenomenal that game. I think he had 4 touchdown passes, 2 on the ground. He was unbelievable. So
He's one of those where he like off the bus, he looks the part. He looks the
yeah,
part off the bus. My problem with him is sometimes within the same game, you get one quarterback for one quarter or one drive, and then you seemingly get a guy completely different on another drive. So that's what kind of drove me crazy with him. In terms of physical talent, I think he has it. In terms
yeah.
of everything else, that's kind of where he sits.
Illinois' Luke Altmaier, Vanderbilt's Diego Pavia. Who's gonna ask him the question about the Heisman? Who's gonna do it? Not me.
I'm gonna if I see him at a podium, I'm gonna go to a different podium. That's all I'm gonna say.
North Dakota State's Cole Payton and LSU's Garrett Nussmeier. As of right now, Ty Simpson, please declare for the Senior Bowl. Please do it. Please do it.
Please get an
I would
invite
love
and
that.
go. Curious, is Klubnik gonna do Shrine? Is he gonna do?
I don't know what Klubnik's gonna do.
Did he completely tank his like? Because I don't know. Is he now in like Quinn Ewers territory of like 5-star who's gonna be like a 6th round pick, and then we see him for a week before they bring Phillip Rivers out? Like
I can't get the Klubnik from the end of 2024 out of my head. That little run he had where Clemson won the ACC and they made the college football playoff by the skin of their teeth. That was some really good stuff right there.
That was the biggest bummer. I was pretty high on him last summer, probably because of that run. He's another one where it's like you see the tools are there, but it's getting them consistently and accessing them at all times. And it seemed like, it's a pretty big yuck when he had the spotlight right on him at the beginning of the year. And I don't know how much of it was that system. I tried to watch Clemson for the first 2.5 months, and I just like every game I would get through like 3 quarters and I would just have to like shake my head and go away because it was such a frustrating offense to try to watch. So, but we will talk about Antonio Williams at some point.
Antonio Williams, underrated. Nobody's talking about him anymore. Nobody's talking
we'll get
about
to
him
it.
anymore.
Well, probably not this episode, but we'll get to it. Don't worry about it.
But as we'll close things out here, I think we'll give you a little bit of Steelers talk. The Steelers right now, they're in such an interesting situation. We can go on about their future and how it's pretty bleak for them. I'd say, I don't think that's crazy to say as far as what are they going to do? Quarterback. They don't have any receivers. What are they going to do? What's their plan? If you're the Steelers right now, let's say you pick mid-20s. Who are you looking for? What position are you zoning in on if you're the Steelers?
Are we working on the premise that Tomlin is a for sure back? We're running it back with Arthur Smith.
We're running it back
for the Tennessee job. He's still there.
I hope he does, but he won't.
I mean, same, especially if the Packers are serious about trying to hire Harbaugh and moving on from Matt LaFleur.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Could you imagine?
Like, I would like, if this is why I'm not the NFL owner, because if that were to happen, first off, I would have already fired everybody and hired Mike McDaniel. and second off, if that didn't work out, I'd be going so hard for Matt LaFleur. But regardless, if we're throwing all that out, I think some popular options. Everyone's going to say wide receiver. I just don't believe it. I'll believe it when I see it. The last one they drafted in the first round was San Antonio Holmes, and they just don't do it. I want them to. They're not going to do it.
Go ahead.
So if they throw wide receiver out, another one I really want that they're not going to do because it's been forever. It's been even longer since they've done that. We'd have to go back to, I think it's like the early 2000s, maybe the 90s. Was it Chad Scott? Like they don't draft CBs. They don't draft corners. We should, especially in this draft class, because there's some real bangers that are going to be there right at the end of the first, start of the early second. Probably not going to do that. So if that's the case, you're sitting there. What are the Steelers going to do? D-line's always an option. It's a good D-line class.
People will hate that. People will hate that.
People would hate. I'm prepping it for Steelers fans. It's probably going to be something you hate because it's probably going to be trenches, which is never a bad call if you pick the right guy. But you're going to have a soon to open up hole on the defensive end spot that Cam Hayward's going to leave, or defensive tackle. I honestly think there's a couple of guys that are potential noses that would be great right around that range that you could bump Benton back out to the outside and put a real true nose tackle in. Don't know if we'll do that. And I think it's a really good guard class. I think that would gross people out, but I think it's a really good guard class. And with Smalo on basically the end of his contract, I wouldn't be against it if the right guy was there. And this one I'm coming more and more convinced of, and everyone is absolutely going to hate this, but just because of where they're playing themselves into draft position wise and where their strengths in this class, I'm not really out linebacker. I'm really not.
It's ugly, but you're right.
It
would be ugly.
There's like
people would hate it.
Linebackers right now who, if this was like 1990s or like the early 2000s, would be first rounders. Like, no doubt. Like, there's 2 Ohio State guys. You got Reese, you got Sonny Styles. If either of them were to fall,
if Sonny Styles, I'd run to the podium for Sonny Styles.
I would run to the podium for Sonny Styles. You got Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech. He's up there. You got the kid out of Georgia who I would also run up there for. What's his name? CJ. Oh, hold on, let me pull up my big board. It's CJ.
I have a name in my head. I don't want to say the wrong name though. I'll let you pull up the big board.
That's why I'm going for it's CJ Allen. Yeah.
Yes.
CJ Allen. And then you've also got Josiah Trotter out there, who I don't know if I haven't done as much on him yet, so I'm not.
WVU legend, second WVU mentioned this podcast. I promise this won't happen every time. This is right up one because nobody from WVU is going to get drafted. But Josiah Trotter transferred from WVU to Missouri, and WVU's defense ever since then, oh my goodness, pathetic. Obviously, they've had outside factors, coaching changes, things like that. But Josiah Trotter is unbelievable.
The big board I use right now that's supposed to be a mixture of all of them has him as 83. They've got Jake Galday out of Cincinnati as a 64 right now. He's another one I need to do a little bit more on. They're higher on Anthony Hill Jr. out of Texas than I am. I think he's a little overrated at the moment. But I just listed off like 6 linebackers that I think could totally step in and be like starting by the middle of next season for us if needed. So like, people are going to hate it because it's no longer a premium position, but this is a weird draft and you pick the best players there. And so, I'll also throw out safety as an option. For some reason, the Steelers will draft a safety in the first when they shouldn't, but they won't draft a corner. And it's a pretty strong safety class too. I mean, that's where I'm thinking. I wouldn't rule out offensive tackle. It's just that it's not a super strong offensive tackle class. I mean, I get the logic of like, if they don't think Broderick's really the guy. I think there's also a scenario where Broderick gets his 5th declined and they tick him into guard and they try to see if they can run it with Dylan Cook right now. Dylan Cook and bring in like either another rookie or a vet to compete with him just to make sure in the summer. But I could see that happening. But if you told me right now, I'd say D-tackle or linebacker are probably the 2 most likely for me.
I do think it's the distinct possibility that when we go into training camp next summer, it could be a Broderick Jones and Dylan Cook battle for the tackle spot because Dylan Cook's been really, really good. Like better than anyone I think anticipated him being filling in for Broderick Jones. So I think he's played himself into, at least at the worst case scenario, getting half a shot in training camp, if nothing else.
He at least is going to get a half-baked competition. And what I would say is like, I don't know, for me, decline the 5th year, have Broderick. I mean, I think you could run him back and say, hey, put him in a competition. I think what I would rather see is you bring in competition for tackle with Cook. You kick Broderick inside. I know he's been bounced around, but I just feel like he's just so athletic that I feel like if you stick him in at guard, maybe that's a mistake, but I would like to see if he could do anything there because I feel like as a tackle, you're not pulling as often as if you were at guard. And I would like to see, I also just feel like in so many with the design plays, because my biggest frustration with Broderick has been in the running game when they have him on the move, which is what he's supposed to be good at, but he so clearly doesn't know who to pick up. And maybe that's why he wouldn't be good at guard. But I'm just curious if they moved him into that, if that would be more direct and he could just see guy in front of him, get guy in front of him. Cause like he's fine as a pass blocker. Like he's not elite by any means. I think, Fautano probably would have been a better left tackle, but here we are.
Yeah.
We got him on the right.
I'm very glad that you went the route you did with your question, with the question I asked you, because you said, what are the Steelers likely going to do? I understand that Tomlin's coming back and Arthur Smith is probably coming back. I'm going to answer this question more of like, what should the Steelers obviously do? I know you said everybody's going to say wide receiver, everybody's going to say corner. Those are probably the two biggest needs on the team overall. Secondary help in general. My pipe dream is that one of those top three guys that I was talking about, like Tyson, Lemon, I think Tate's probably going to go the first out of all of them as of right now. I feel like a lot of people really like Carnell.
Do we want to have this? Do we want to have those three guy talk right now to close this one out?
We can, sure. Yeah,
because I have thoughts. I'm open to changing them, but I want to hear your thoughts first, and then I'll fill in afterwards. But if you have any take on them, please go.
I think my order right now of them, if I'm sitting right here today, and this is without doing too much of a deep dive, this is very early, this is going to change. This is very subjective. I don't want anybody to hold me to this. But if I had to rank them right now, I think they're all very close. 1A, 1B, 1C, we'll call them. Carnell Tate, 1A. Makhai Lemon, 1B. Jordyn Tyson, 1C. Sounds like you have it completely flipped.
I think it's not completely, and again, these are all three guys that I would totally love to have on the team. Again, we were talking earlier about it's like what you're looking for, right? If I'm being honest, the player I love the most is 100% the riskiest, because I love Jordyn Tyson. Jordyn Tyson is
I like it.
Awesome. Fun player.
I love
awesome.
Tyson. I love all of them. I really do.
Yeah, all three of them I would be happy for sure, no doubt, especially with our deficiencies on that position. Like I would sign me up for all three of them. But Tyson to me is the one that I would equally be most excited and also most nervous for, because the biggest thing with him is he's just always hurt. He's always hurt. When he's on the field, he is amazing. He is electric. He's great. He's always hurt. That's the big thing for him. If we go to Tate, I think Ibuka it's lazy to do the same team helmet comp of Ibuka, but if we're talking about where he's likely to get drafted, what type of player, what role he will fill, very similar, where he is big-bodied. He's not going to beat you in a track race, but he savvy route runner, knows how to use his body to get position, reliable hands. I think the biggest thing for him this year was that he went from being a guy who converted about 30% of his contested catch targets to being a guy who this year converted 12 of 14. Like that was the biggest level up. That's what's the most exciting about him, is that we saw him, his hands got better, his contested catch got better. He's just a guy who I think has been playing next to Jeremiah Smith and a lot of other amazing wide receivers. Ohio State's a factory. And so he's only ever really been like, him being like their second best receiver this year has like been the highest he's ever been in their pecking order. So like, I think that he would be, I'm not going to say T Higgins, but I think like when I think of like who are really good wide receiver twos who could probably be a wide receiver one for a team, but where they really shine is if they're that secondary guy who's dominating the team when they throw all their attention at the wide receiver one. That's what Carnell Tate is. Makhai Lemon is tough because on the one hand, easily the best hands in the class.
Yes.
Easily. Strong hands catcher, plucks. He's not a body catcher. He plucks it. He gets it out. He has a surprising for like his limbs not appearing, at least to me. We'll see if we get official measurements at the combine. He does not appear to have long arms to me. He does not.
He's not a big guy in general. I think that's the big knock on him.
But he's surprisingly better in contested catches than I think people give him credit for because they see the small body. I'm not going to say he's Antonio Brown contested catch, but he's pretty good at getting contested catches for what he's working with. He's not, and again, this is so late. It feels so lazy, but because it's the same college, same type of player. But if you're like looking for role, he truly is. This class is like Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like that's what he does. He's not incredibly fast. I think that he's quick. He's more quick than fast. Like he's a horizontal guy. He has enough speed to play and make it in the NFL. I'm calling it right now. He's a 4.52, 4.55 guy. We'll see if maybe he trains his ass off and is better than that. The 40 is a little overrated anyway when it comes to wide receivers. But the thing that impresses me most about him are the hands. And he's not a guy who's going to run anybody over, but he's a guy that defenders bounce off of in a way that's like doesn't make sense for his frame. He's like 5'11", 195 is his listed weight. And I was watching him. I'm writing up a profile on him right now, so I was watching a lot of him. And the amount of times where he would just kind of sidestep and have someone bounce off his hip and then just keep going was truly stunning. I was like, you should be going down, and you just picked up like an extra 10 yards. How did you do that? Like, he's not like flashy, like with his like movements, and yet he makes a lot of people miss tackles. And so my question with him is, I don't know. He's obviously going to be a guy who's probably primarily slot. I don't know yet if he can win consistently on the outside. My concern watching him was if he's a guy that's like getting jammed off the line. I don't know how crisp his routes currently are and how good he is at releasing. Maybe that comes with time. So I would say you're a little more limited maybe in his deployment initially. So that's why I think he's my third right now of the two. But I have Tyson one with a huge caveat of like, yes, I'm aware he's a medical red flag, and that's very concerning, but I do love watching him play when he's healthy. Carnell Tate just for solid all around, and then Makhai Lemon, like I would still be ecstatic, but he's probably my 3A.
Completely fair. All good points. And I'm going to say the cop-out answer, the wide receiver, just because of how frustrating it is to watch the Pittsburgh Steelers try to throw to what they call a wide receiver room right now. And we're going to see that tomorrow at the time of this recording against the Houston Texans. By the time this comes out, you'll know the result of that. But yeah.
Any final score predictions? Where are we thinking?
I posted a video on my YouTube yesterday. My prediction was, I kept it the same as my prediction on Behind the Steel Curtain. Texans 23, Steelers 17. I think they keep it respectable. I think it's going to be close. I think the Texans still cover in that scenario anyways, but still. It's not going to be embarrassing. Yeah. Houston is not built to completely embarrass the Steelers. Like we're used to seeing them getting embarrassed in the first round, at least in the way of Houston putting up 30-some points on the Steelers. Last 5 times the Steelers have been in the playoffs, they've given up an average of 38.8 points per game. I don't think Houston's quite that built.
Houston can't run the ball consistently. So if the Steelers can like because like that's the thing with the Steelers, right? Is like we've seen them have a really good days run defense. We've seen them have days where it's like holy crap, who's in charge of these gaps? Who's setting the edge? What's happening? But so I don't know. Like my worst case scenario is they turn the ball over in a couple of inopportune spots, and that allows Houston to get to 30, and it's like a 30-18 gross game. That's like the worst case scenario. I feel like the best case scenario that involves the Steelers win is truly like 18-17, 21-20, some gross number like that, where it's like scoregami because teams just don't score this lowly. I don't know. But like we were saying before, it's like the AFC is such a weird spot right now because like say the Bills get bounced in the next round, because we would have to if we win, we're playing the Patriots.
We play in Foxborough. Yeah.
So say the Bills go to Denver and get bounced, and the Steelers somehow slop out a win against the Texans. They slop out a win against the Patriots, who they've already done that once this season,
Don't get me excited.
Drake May, I love him. He is my boy. He was my QB1 in that class. He was yearning to turn it over tonight. He was yearning so hard to turn it over.
He was.
so say we get another turnover heavy game where the Steelers are able to capitalize and win. Like, they don't move the ball all game, but they get like 3 turnovers in the red zone and score off of that. It's not inconceivable that they go into Denver and it's Aaron Rodgers versus Bo Nix, and Bo Nix's, and we somehow again survive a game we shouldn't, and then we go and get boat raced by Seattle or the Rams.
This is going to look so bad when this gets posted and we lost.
That is our best case scenario. That's our best scenario. Remember that my worst case scenario is we lose like 30-18. Don't print in the paper that I was mad.
long story short, there is a path for the Steelers to win. There really, really is. Anybody who's telling you that it's going to be, a nothing game, Steelers are going to get boat raced, they're wrong. There is a path for the Steelers to win. It's just it's there. It's got to be
not to insult these teams because they were much better than the current Steelers were, but there is a precedent of like a Chargers, a Bengals making it to the Super Bowl and just getting whacked. And that could be us this year.
I wouldn't be mad at it. Who do you have coming out of the AFC though? And you're like,
well, I know I just made fun of it, but I did my whole thing and I was like, my Super Bowl is we're getting a Seahawks Patriots rematch.
I think that's fair. I had the Bills coming out of the AFC. Because
did I do Seahawks Patriots? No, I might have done Rams Patriots actually. But either way, it's whoever between Seattle and the Rams.
Yes, it's Seattle and the Rams because
I think the AFC field lays out so well for the Patriots. I was like, they're gonna win against the hapless like super injured Chargers. Check. Now they're gonna play the winner of our game Monday night. So it's either gonna be the Steelers, who, let's be real,
probably shouldn't be in that game to begin with.
One of the more fraudulent wins of the year was that one. Felt like they should have probably won that one. Could win on a second meeting. The Texans, see, that's the thing, is like the Texans, it's like I don't know how to feel about them because that is a Super Bowl defense and an offense that I have zero faith in, other than Nico Collins. So who knows? So anything could happen. I just think the NFC is winning the Super Bowl. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. Whoever comes out of the NFC is winning it. Unless
it's the Bears, and if the Bears come out of the NFC, the AFC.
Oh my god! But I'd be so happy if it's the Bears. I'd love that. I would love that.
I've got a coworker who would be so happy because she just got married and it would be like the perfect wedding gift, but it's like, it's the Bears. That's going to.
Yeah. Yeah. So there is that balance. So it's really good NFL playoffs. So absolutely insane. The games have been awesome so far. Hopefully the Steelers can continue that trend. But thank you everyone for listening. Episode number 1 in the books of the Best Available Pod. Like we said, lots of content coming, especially post Senior Bowl. We'll be doing daily episodes after Senior Bowl practices, giving you our thoughts, guys that really stood out, include some clips of guys we talked to. Hopefully we're able to get some questions into some players. So let us know what you guys want us to talk about. If there's a guy that you like, we can look into him for you, give you a report, drop a like, drop a follow, drop a comment, subscribe, listen to Behind the Steel Curtain. You can see Ryan and I's work on a lot of these draft prospects and everything throughout this process as we go on. But any final thoughts from you, Ryan?
Yeah, just want to tease out a few more things. And honestly, let us know if you're listening to this, what you want to see covered. But some other ideas of things we could do. We'll obviously be doing deeper positional dives. We'll be doing mock drafts at some point, I'm sure. I'm curious if there's any interest in doing Fix My Team, where we do some drafts for teams and we do like a quick little 15-minute, let's do all the draft picks for a team and see if we can fix like the Jets or the Raiders or any of those teams that really desperately need some football CPR. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. We're only a couple weeks out from the Senior Bowl, and once that happens, things will really start kicking up. Thank you for listening. Stick with us this whole time. It's gonna be a fun draft class. So
yeah, absolutely. We really appreciate everybody who listened to this one. Yeah, we'll see you next time. Same place, right here on the Best Available Pod.